What is good, you guys? Welcome back to the airport. Welcome back to a brand new video. And guys, I am starting a new series on this channel where we go through every team in the Eastern and Western Conference that are looking to contend for a championship, and I'm going to be breaking down each of these teams in different videos. Now I know the channel has been mostly Miami Heat related content. I did originally create it to talk about the Heat, but I do want to make this an NBA channel as well. So I'm going to do a little bit of rebranding with the channel. But I do think the series is going to be really dope because I'm going to be getting to talk about all the teams in the East and the West that are trying to contend, that are trying to make a run at the title. I'm going to be talking about dissecting their flaws, their benefits, everything about those teams. So in today's video, we're going to be particularly focusing on the Philadelphia 76ers because that has probably been the team that has been the most talked about since the trade deadline, with the James Harden trade to the Sixers, obviously. And they have been up and down, man. They started off really hot, and then they've had some rough patches here and there as well. They do play tonight against the Mavericks as I'm recording this video, so I'm gonna be definitely tuning into that game. I know it's March Madness, I'm also gonna be tuning into March Madness as well. But I'm also going to be tuning into the Sixers versus Mavs game because that's going to be one of the most intriguing games today. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. And please feel free to join the community by following me on Twitter, subscribing to the channel. Like I said, I do want to make this an NBA related channel as well. So let's get right into it. The Philadelphia 76ers currently sit third in the Eastern Conference with a record of 42-26. And the mission for this team is very simple: win a championship. That has been the goal of this team, and the goal has been even more magnified since the trade deadline, where they have added one of the best players in league history, and a top 10 player in the NBA in James Harden. Now James Harden had started off the season very slowly. A lot of people were saying it's because of the new foul rules, but I always thought that he was going to be able to adjust, and he did. He had put together a very good stretch of games with Brooklyn late, until the time where he got traded, and when he requested a trade, he was doing really well with the Nets. And when he got to the Sixers, a lot of people were like, whoa, what is this new team? James Harden, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, like, this team is crazy. People were dubbing James Harden and Joel Embiid the new Kobe and Shaq 2.0, this, that, and the other. I was not too high on this trade. Obviously, the Sixers definitely do walk out here with a win because Ben Simmons had not played the entire season. But I did think that, I did question the fit between James Harden and Joel Embiid, and a lot of the other things, a lot of the other components on this team that I didn't really like, so as far as the role players are concerned. And I'm going to be talking about this, come playoff time. How is this team going to, mesh together on the court? But let's start off with Joel Embiid, the head of the snake of this team, the face of this team, in my opinion. You might think James Harden is a better player, but I think Joel Embiid this season has been in, one of the most valuable players. He's in the running for MVP. I think it's between him and Jokic and Giannis. So hopefully for his sake, I hope he wins it, because he hasn't won the MVP award yet, unlike the other two. But yeah, he has been an absolute force this season, both ends. A lot of people don't really like the way that he plays offensively, and sometimes it can get annoying, drawing fouls, foul baiting, all that stuff. It can get annoying, but he's just too much of an unstoppable force that sometimes you just have no option but to foul him. And Joel has taken it up another notch this season. Durability has been a big question mark since he's entered the league, and he's kind of, he has missed games here and there, but it's been a lot, less. He's been far more durable than he ever was, in his career. And he's taken the next step. Another player who's taken the next step for them, Tyrese Maxey, probably one of the most improved players this season. I always knew he was a bucket, but man, he's ascended so fast, a lot faster than I thought he would. And he's been a really good second option for them until James Harden got to their team. In that trade, they did give up some shooting in Seth Curry, which we're going to talk about, because I do think one of the flaws of this team is perimeter shooting. But we're going to be talking about the good things about this team first. So Tyrese Maxey, we all know, is a stud. Matisse Thybulle defensively is a stud. I do like how George Niang has improved his game to be a very good 3-and-D player, to come off the bench and to complement James and Joel. We all know what James can bring to the table. I don't really have to talk about him. Tobias Harris is the big question mark for me. He is the big X factor, because since the start of the season, he's been okay, but since the James Harden trade, he hasn't really been all that. He's fallen into that fourth option tier, because you still have Tyrese, you have Joel, you have James. So Tobias hasn't really been, as effective. The thing about Tobias is that he's not a pure catch and shoot player in my eyes. I always think of him as a guy who, whenever he catches the ball, 90% of the time, he always does a one dribble pull up, one dribble sidestep. It's never a pure catch and shoot scenario with Tobias. He needs the ball in his hands. He's kind of like, him and like Jeremy Grant are very similar in my opinion, where they're not like exclusively catch and shoot players. But I think Jeremy Grant is even more of a catch and shoot player than Tobias is, especially when he was with the Nuggets. Maybe think of it as like a Chris Middleton, who always, takes a dribble and pulls up, even though I think Chris is better than Tobias. But Tobias is the big X factor for this team, because one thing we have to talk about with this team is the spacing. Because when they traded Seth Curry, I kept asking this question: who outside of James and Joel are going to beat us in a series, especially from the perimeter? I know Tyrese Maxey can score the ball, but I don't see Tyrese Maxey as a reputable shooter. They don't really have a guy. You know how the Brooklyn Nets got Seth Curry. Seth Curry is known around the league for his shooting. He's a shooting threat. The scouting report is, do not leave Seth Curry open from threes, because that's his biggest strength. The Heat have Duncan Robinson, Max Strus. I know Robinson has been a little bit off this year, especially at the start, but they're reputable shooters. The Bucks, Grayson Allen, when they had DiVincenzo, Pat Connaughton, these guys are reputable shooters. Who is the reputable shooter for the Philadelphia 76ers? The only player on this team who has a reputation of being a sniper is Danny Green. And Danny Green, let's be honest, has fallen off since his San Antonio Spurs and Toronto Raptor days. He was atrocious in the finals and in the playoffs with the Lakers. And with the Sixers, he hasn't been all that. Furkan Korkmaz was supposed to be that guy. Unfortunately for Furkan, he's only shooting about 29% from three this season. George Niang has been their best shooter this year. And I think that's a problem. If George Niang is your best shooter come playoff time, I think that is a major, red flag. I know Tyrese, you can kick it out to him and he can definitely space the floor, but I don't see Tyrese as a guy who's a catch and shoot player who's going to be running off screens like that. That I think is more Furkan, Danny Green on their team, even Niang at times. So perimeter shooting is one thing that I think is one of the flaws of this team that might come to bite them back come playoff time. By no means am I giving a prediction. I'm not saying that they're going to fold or they're going to lose in the first round. This is just me analyzing the team and talking about their good things and their bad things. And perimeter shooting is something that it's a question mark to me, because outside of James and Joel, who is James kicking it out to that is going to be running off screens? I don't really see anyone on this team who's a reputable threat. Another thing, perimeter defense. I know they kept Matisse Thybulle in the trade, and Matisse Thybulle is another thing with the shooting. At times he could be unplayable because he's not a threat and teams can just leave him open from three. And I know he brings defense. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA. But who else do they have on that team who's a perimeter stopper? They don't really have a guy who's gonna. If Matisse Thybulle is gonna guard the best player, if he guards KD, who's guarding Kyrie? Like, there's always going to be the second option on the team who's going to be there to hurt you. And most teams, most playoff contenders, championship contenders will have more than one guy who's capable of torching a team. And you can't just rely on Matisse to guard everyone. So outside of Matisse, who is the guy who's going to be, stopping people on the perimeter? I know on the interior they have Joel, and he's been a very good defender over his career on the interior. But on the perimeter, who is going to be the guy they're going to, stop the opponent's best player outside of Matisse? Because they don't really have that, in my opinion. And like I said, Matisse can be unplayable at times because teams will just leave him open, give him the Andre Roberson treatment. And, if he's not knocking down open shots, he could be hurting his team in a way. Even though he's playing very good defense, you need to produce on the offensive end as well. So Matisse is going to be key for them as well, along with Tobias, for knocking down shots and being productive offensively. And then the last thing that I need to talk about this team, as far as, you know, things that I'm concerned about, is their depth, their bench scoring. Shake Milton has been, you know, he's had some injury concerns this season, but even when he's been playing, he hasn't really been the Shake Milton of the past. He's averaging about 8 points per game, but he's probably their sixth man. I don't really think they have a guy off the bench. You know, how the Heat have a Tyler Hero. You know, the Nets, I know Cam Thomas is a rookie, but Cam Thomas is a bucket. Even the Bucks have, you know, players off the bench like Pat Connaughton, people like that who can, you know, fill it up at times. But the Sixers don't really have someone that I think is a very big bench scoring threat. I know George Niang is a shooter. Like I said, he's been playing pretty well this season. Danny Green and Furkan Korkmaz haven't really been that to me. Millsap and DeAndre Jordan are pretty old and they're going towards the end of their careers. I don't know how consistently you can, you know, rely on them. It's really all on Shake Milton in my eyes to be the microwave off the bench, and if he's not doing that, who's going to be the guy? You know, who's if James is struggling, if Tyrese is struggling, who is the ball handler off the bench who's going to be, you know, picking up the slack? You know, last year they did have, you know, some people off the bench that could. Their team was deeper last year, but it wasn't as top heavy as it is right now. So I know for every advantage there's a disadvantage, and for the James Harden trade, they got a big star piece alongside Joel, alongside Tyrese, but they did lose some depth in my opinion. And I think they're gonna have to figure that out. I really thought they were gonna try to sign an Isaiah Thomas type guy from the G League, but the Hornets swooped him up, so they don't really have. I don't really know who's out there in the buyout market. The time to sign players is it's dwindling down, and I don't think the Sixers are gonna make any moves to sign a player on a 10-day or something like that in free agency. I think this is their team, and they're gonna have to roll with it because, you know, we are very close to the end of the regular season, and you know, you usually don't want to add players too late into the season if you don't want to mess up chemistry and you know, gelling on the court. But yeah, so the three concerns with me for the Sixers are perimeter shooting, perimeter defense outside of Matisse, and bench scoring. And if they can figure this out, I think their flaws, they don't really have any more flaws in my opinion. I think apart from that, we can talk about foul baiting. We can talk about James Harden sometimes disappearing in the playoffs. That's fine. I'm not really worried about James or Joel. I think they'll show up. I just think it's the others, you know, because James and Joel cannot single-handedly carry you to a championship. The others have to step up. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with the Sixers, man. But I'm super excited to see what they do come playoff time, because a lot of people think it's a championship or bust season for them. So let me know what you guys think about that statement in the comment section below. And if you guys are Sixers fans, let me know if you thought what I said was crazy. If you agreed with what I said, feel free to add in the comment section below your thoughts, because I know I didn't refer to everything because I'm not a Sixers fan, so I'm not religiously watching all 82 games for them. It's just some things that I've, you know, seen from the games that I have watched of them. So yeah, use that comment section and let me know, is this a championship or bust year for the Philadelphia 76ers? I will be doing more teams along the way next, so stay tuned. Leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Peace.